Taman stared at the holographic display floating above his desk. The galaxy spun slowly before him, a beautiful spiral of stars and civilizations. Billions of worlds lit up in different colors, each one mapped and catalogued by the galactic concordate over thousands of years. Trade routes appeared as glowing lines connecting star systems. Nebulas were marked with warning symbols. Everything was detailed and precise. Everything except one region. At the edge of the map, there was a gray void. It wasn't small. The empty space covered what should have been thousands of star systems. Where there should have been planets, stars, and navigation data, there was nothing. Just a simple label that read, Restricted Territory, Human Space. Taman had been a cartographer for 3 years. He worked in the central archives of the Concordate, where every piece of spatial data in the known galaxy was stored. He had spent countless hours updating trade routes, adding new colony worlds, and correcting stellar drift calculations. But he had never questioned the gray void. No one did. It was simply there, like a fact of nature. Until today. He had been assigned to update the border regions when he noticed something strange. The maps from 500 years ago showed the same gray void. The maps from 1,000 years ago showed it too. Even the oldest maps in the archive, dating back 4,000 years, showed that same empty space with the same label. Nothing in the galaxy stayed the same for 4,000 years. Empires rose and fell. Species evolved or went extinct. Stars died and were born. But this void never changed. It never grew. It never shrank. It just existed, perfectly static, while everything around it shifted and transformed. Taman leaned back in his chair. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a habit of his species when they were deep in thought. He pulled up the access logs for the human territory files. What he saw made his skin darken with confusion. The files had been accessed 2,147 times in the last 100 years, but every single access was marked as administrative review only. Every query had been flagged. Every researcher who had looked at these files had been contacted by archive security within days. He was about to close the logs when he heard footsteps behind him. "You're looking at the wrong files, Taman." He turned to see Ha-Un standing in the doorway. She was older than him by several decades, her silver skin marked with the wisdom patterns of a senior archivist. Her expression was serious. "I was just updating the border regions," Taman said. The human territory came up in the search. Ha-Un walked to his desk and waved her hand through the hologram, closing it. The human territory always comes up in searches, and young cartographers always get curious. I was curious once too. What happened? I learned that some questions are dangerous to ask. Ha-Un sat on the edge of his desk. The Concordate has laws, Taman, important laws. The first law states that no member species may enter human space without explicit permission. The second law states that no military vessels may approach within 50 light years of human borders. The third law states that inquiries into human capabilities or territory are restricted to the highest security clearance. Taman's skin rippled with surprise. I've never heard of these laws. Most people haven't. They're not taught in schools. They're not discussed in council meetings. They exist in a special section of the legal code that only archivists and high-ranking officials ever see. Ha-Un looked at the blank space where the hologram had been. Do you know why we have 847 member species in the Concordate? Because we value cooperation and peace? Because 848 species used to exist in this region of space. Ha-Un's voice was quiet. The Krell Empire was the most powerful civilization in the galaxy 4,000 years ago. They controlled 10,000 worlds. Their fleets numbered in the millions. They had weapons that could shatter planets. Taman had heard of the Krell. Everyone had. They were taught as a cautionary tale about the dangers of aggressive expansion. What happened to them? He asked, though he suspected he knew the answer. They met humanity. Ha-Un stood up. I can't tell you more than that. I shouldn't have told you this much. But I like you, Taman. You're curious and intelligent. Those are good qualities. But curiosity about humans is dangerous. Drop this. Update your maps. Forget about the gray void. She walked toward the door, then paused. Director Krelthax wants to see you tomorrow morning. He probably saw that you accessed the human files. Be careful what you say to him." After Ha-eun left, Taemin sat in silence for a long time. He should have followed her advice. He should have closed his terminal and gone home. But something she said bothered him. The Krell Empire had controlled 10,000 worlds. That was more territory than the entire Concordat controlled now, and humanity had destroyed them. He reopened his terminal, being more careful this time. Instead of searching for human files directly, he looked for historical records from 4,000 years ago, battle reports, diplomatic correspondence, anything from the time period when the Krell fell. Most files were heavily redacted. Entire passages were blacked out. But he found fragments, pieces of a story that no one wanted told, a report from a Krell admiral. Unlike anything we've encountered. They don't fight with honor, they fight to win. Every weapon they have is designed for maximum. The rest was redacted, a diplomatic message from a neutral species. Beg the Krell to negotiate. The humans have offered peace terms 3 times. If the Krell attack their homeworld, there will be. Redacted. A fragment from a survivor's testimony. The star itself. I didn't think it was possible. No one did. They turned their own star into a weapon and... Redacted. Taemin felt his hands shaking. He closed the files and sat in the dark of his office. The archive was empty at this hour. He was alone with information that terrified him. His terminal beeped. A new message had arrived. It had no sender identification, no routing information. It simply appeared in his inbox as if by magic. He opened it. Inside was a single file, coordinates, a location deep inside human space, and a message in ancient Krell script, a dead language that Taemin had studied in university. He translated it slowly. For those brave enough to ask why. Taemin stared at the coordinates for a long time. Someone had sent this to him. Someone wanted him to find these coordinates. Someone wanted him to go into human space and discover the truth. He copied the coordinates to a personal data chip and deleted the message. Then he deleted the access log showing he had received it. Then he deleted the log showing he had deleted the logs. When he finally left the archive that night, the twin moons of the Concordat homeworld were high in the sky. He looked up at them and wondered how many other people had received messages like the one he got. How many had been brave enough or foolish enough to follow those coordinates. He wondered if he would be next. Tomorrow he would meet with Director Krelthax. He would be warned. He would be watched. But Taemin knew something had changed inside him. He had spent his whole life mapping the galaxy, accepting that some regions were simply off limits. Now he knew that the greatest mystery in known space was waiting at those coordinates, and he was going to find out why the maps ended at human space. The border station hung in space like a small city. Taemin watched it grow larger through his ship's viewport as he approached. The station marked the edge of Concordat space and the beginning of human territory. It was neutral ground where species came to trade with humanity under carefully controlled conditions. Getting here had taken Taemin 3 weeks. 3 weeks of travel and 3 weeks of planning. His meeting with Director Krelthax had gone exactly as Ha-eun predicted. The director had been stern but not angry. He had warned Taemin that curiosity about humans was natural but dangerous. He had suggested that Taemin focus on his regular work and forget about the gray void on the maps. Taemin had nodded and agreed. Then he had requested vacation time to visit the outer territories for personal research. The director had approved it without question. Now he was here at the edge of everything he knew. The station's docking control gave him permission to land. His small research vessel settled into a berth in the commercial sector. As he walked through the airlock, Taemin noticed how different this place felt from other stations he had visited. There were more security checkpoints, more cameras, more armed guards, and there were humans. He saw his first human in the customs area. She wore a simple uniform and stood behind a desk processing arrivals. She was small compared to most species, with only 2 eyes and smooth skin. She looked fragile. But when she looked up at Taemin, her eyes were sharp and intelligent. Purpose of visit? She asked in perfect Concordat standard language. Trade route research, Taemin said, which was technically true. He was researching routes, just not for trade. She scanned his credentials and nodded. Welcome to Gateway Station. Please observe all posted regulations regarding human interaction. Do not attempt to record or scan human vessels. Do not ask questions about human territory or military capabilities. Enjoy your stay. The warning was delivered in a friendly tone, but it was still a warning. Taemin spent his first day wandering the station. He visited the commercial sectors where alien merchants sold goods that came from human space. Strange foods. Advanced technology. Art that seemed to shift and change as you looked at it. Everything was expensive and carefully regulated. He found what he was looking for in a small bar on the lower levels. The bar catered to long-term traders who regularly dealt with humans. Taemin ordered a drink and sat in a corner listening. The conversations were careful. No one spoke directly about humans. Instead, they talked in hints and suggestions. A trader mentioned that human manufacturing was efficient beyond calculation. Another whispered about human medical technology that could regrow entire organs in hours. Someone else spoke about human ships that could cross the galaxy faster than should be possible. Taemin was about to leave when an old merchant sat down across from him. The merchant was from a species Taemin didn't recognize. His skin was rough and scarred, and his 3 eyes studied Taemin carefully. "You're not a trader," the merchant said. "I'm a researcher. You're a fool." The merchant took a drink. "I've been coming here for 40 years. I know the look of someone who wants to know about humans. I had that look once. What happened?" The merchant was quiet for a moment. "I asked a human once why they stay separate from the rest of the galaxy. She was a trade officer, friendly woman. She smiled at me and said, 'When predators go to sleep, the prey get to live.'" Taemin felt his skin darken. "Are you saying humans are predators?" "I'm saying humans are what happens when a predator species develops technology." The merchant leaned forward. "Do you know about the Krell War?" "A little. The Krell had a fleet of 10 million warships. They conquered everything in their path for 1,000 years. When they met humanity, they demanded surrender. Humans said no. The Krell sent their entire fleet to humanity's homeworld. Do you know what happened next?" Taemin shook his head. The human homeworld had a sun just like any other planet. But humans had built something around that sun. Something impossible. When the Krell fleet arrived, humans activated it. The merchant's voice dropped to a whisper. They turned their own star into a weapon. The entire Krell fleet was destroyed in seconds. 10 million ships gone. That's not possible. That's what everyone thought. But the Krell home system is still there. You can visit it. There's nothing left but asteroids and radiation. Humans did that from across the galaxy. The merchant stood up. 3,000 years later, humans still have those weapons. They could end every civilization in known space if they wanted to. But they don't want to. They just want to be left alone. So we leave them alone. After the merchant left, Taemin sat in the bar for hours. He thought about going home. He thought about forgetting the coordinates and returning to his safe job in the archives. But he had come too far to turn back now. The next day, he requested a meeting with the human diplomatic office. To his surprise, they agreed. Jiwoo met him in a small conference room. She was young for a diplomat with dark hair and calm eyes. She offered him water and asked about his research in a polite professional tone. "I'm studying the border regions," Taemin said. "I was hoping to learn more about human territory for my maps." "Our territory is marked as restricted on all official maps," Jiwoo said. "That designation is accurate, but why? The Concordat has always valued open cooperation between species. And humanity values privacy." Jiwoo smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "We have our reasons. The Krell War?" The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Jiwoo's smile faded. She stood up and walked to a wall panel, activating a holographic display. "You've been researching," she said. "That's good. Most people are content to avoid questions. But since you've come all this way, I'll show you something." The hologram showed a star system. Planets orbited a yellow star. Cities covered the planets. Ships moved between worlds. It was beautiful and full of life. "This was the Krell home system 4,000 years ago," Jiwoo said. "Their civilization was old and powerful. They believed they were invincible. The image changed. The planets were gone. In their place were fragments of rock tumbling through space. The star burned alone, surrounded by death. This is the Krell home system now," Jiwoo continued. "We didn't do this because we enjoyed it. We didn't do this because we're monsters. We did it because they gave us no choice. They attacked our homeworld. They tried to exterminate us. So we defended ourselves. Taman stared at the destruction. You destroyed an entire civilization. We destroyed their ability to hurt us. Some Krell survived. They're part of the Concordat now. They're peaceful because they learned what happens when you corner a predator. Jiwoo turned off the hologram. We stay separate because we're dangerous. Not because we want to be. We've spent 3,000 years making sure we never have to make that choice again. Why are you telling me this? Because you have coordinates, don't you? Jiwoo sat back down. Someone sent them to you. Someone always does. Every few decades, a curious person finds coordinates that lead into our space. We know about them. We allow it. Why? Because the galaxy needs to remember. The younger species only know us as mysterious neighbors who keep to ourselves. They forget that we're the reason the Concordat exists. They forget that we could end everything if we chose to. The coordinates are a reminder. Jiwoo looked at him carefully. You should follow them. You'll understand why we stay hidden and why everyone lets us. Taemin left the meeting with more questions than answers. That night, he prepared his ship for departure. He loaded supplies for a long journey. He filed a flight plan that would take him to a remote research station in neutral space. Then he changed course and headed toward human territory. As his ship crossed the border, he waited for alarms. For human warships to intercept him, for weapons to lock onto his vessel, but there was only silence. The galaxy's greatest mystery waited ahead, and Taemin was going to find it. The silence was the worst part. Taemin had been traveling through human space for 6 days, and he hadn't seen a single ship. No patrols, no merchants, no signs of life except the occasional automated beacon marking navigation hazards. His ship's computer, which he had named Da-Yun after his sister, kept a running log of everything they encountered. The numbers were strange, unsettling. Scanning complete for System 7, Da-Yun announced in her calm, artificial voice. Population 0. Energy output, planetary scale. Infrastructure, present. Explanation, none. Taemin looked at the planet filling his viewport. It was beautiful. Blue oceans covered most of the surface. Green continents showed forests and plains. He could see cities from orbit, their lights glowing in the darkness. But his sensors detected no life signs. No ships in orbit. No communications traffic. Da-Yun, are your sensors working correctly? All systems functioning normally. The planet below has active power grids, climate control systems, and transportation networks. But I detect no biological signatures consistent with human life. It was the same pattern he had seen in every system. Worlds that looked lived in but were empty. Space stations that hummed with power but contained no crew. Massive orbital facilities that manufactured goods for no one. Where are they? Taemin whispered. Insufficient data for analysis, Da-Yun replied. Taemin continued toward the coordinates. Each system he passed showed the same strange emptiness. After 8 days of travel, he began to understand. Humanity didn't need to live on planets anymore. They had evolved beyond that. The infrastructure ran itself. The worlds remained beautiful and maintained, but humans had moved somewhere else. The question was, where? On the 10th day, Da-Yun woke him from sleep with an urgent alert. Taemin, I'm detecting energy signatures that should not be possible. He rushed to the cockpit. The main display showed a star system ahead, but the readings made no sense. The star itself was radiating power in patterns that stars didn't produce naturally. Da-Yun, what am I looking at? Unknown. The star is generating energy bursts at regular intervals. The power output is approximately 10,000 times what a natural star should produce. I calculate that if this energy were weaponized, it could destroy everything within 200 light years. Taemin felt ice in his stomach. Is it a weapon? Unknown. But the design is consistent with historical descriptions of stellar converters used in the Krell War. Before Taemin could respond, his communications panel lit up. A signal was being directed at his ship. A human voice spoke in perfect Concordat standard. Unknown vessel, this is human patrol ship Morning Light, please respond. Taemin's hand shook as he opened the channel. This is research vessel Wanderer. I'm from the Concordat. I come in peace. We know who you are, Taemin. We've been tracking you since you crossed our border. The voice was female and calm. My name is Bora. I'm the captain of this patrol ship. You're heading toward restricted coordinates. May I ask why? There was no point in lying. I received coordinates. I want to understand why human space is restricted, why the maps end at your borders. There was a long pause. Then Bo-Ra said, "You've come a long way to satisfy your curiosity. Most people turn back when they see the empty worlds. The silence scares them. It scared me too. But I kept going. I can see that. You have two choices now. You can turn around and go home with the knowledge that humans prefer isolation, or you can continue to the coordinates and see the truth. But I warn you, the truth is heavy. Many who see it wish they hadn't." Taman thought about his small office in the archives, his quiet life updating star charts, the safety and comfort of not knowing. Then he thought about the gray void on every map, the questions that haunted him. "I want to see the truth." "Very well. I'll escort you the rest of the way. Follow my ship and don't deviate from the course I set. There are automated defenses throughout this region. They're dormant but functional. If you trigger them, I won't be able to save you." A sleek ship appeared on Timon's sensors. It was small, not much larger than his own vessel. But the energy readings from it were incredible. This single patrol ship had enough firepower to destroy a concordant battle fleet. They traveled together for 2 more days. Bo-Ra didn't speak much, but when she did, her words were careful and measured. She explained that most humans lived in virtual worlds now. Perfect digital paradises where they could experience anything they wanted. Some lived on garden worlds, small communities that valued simple living. The vast infrastructure of human space was maintained by artificial intelligence and automated systems. "We achieved post-scarcity about 2,000 years ago," Bo-Ra said. "We can create anything we need. We have unlimited energy. We've cured aging and disease. We could expand across the entire galaxy if we wanted to, but we don't want to. Why not? Because we remember what we were, what we could become again if we're not careful." On the 12th day, they arrived at the coordinates. Taman stared at the display and couldn't understand what he was seeing. There was a star, a massive blue giant, but the star wasn't alone. Surrounding it was a structure so large that Taman's mind struggled to comprehend the scale. A sphere. A perfect sphere built around the star. It captured all of the star's energy and controlled it. The surface of the sphere was covered in billions of panels, each one the size of a planet. "That's a stellar converter," Bo-Ra said quietly. "It can transform the star's energy into a directed weapon beam. It can reach across hundreds of light years and destroy anything. Planets, fleets, entire civilizations. One of these weapons ended the Krell Empire. How many do you have?" 17. "One for each of our major colony regions. They were built during the Krell War when we thought we might lose, when we thought we might have to destroy everything to survive." Bo-Ra's voice was heavy. "We won the war, but we kept the weapons, just in case." Taman's ship approached a small station orbiting the sphere. The station was old but well-maintained. As they docked, Bo-Ra's ship pulled alongside. "There's someone here who can explain better than I can," Bo-Ra said. "His name is Sung-Min. He's been waiting for you." The station's interior was simple. Clean metal corridors led to a central chamber. An old man waited there. He looked ancient, with white hair and a face marked by time. But his eyes were sharp and aware. "Welcome, Taman," Sang-Min said. "I'm glad you made it. Not everyone has the courage to come this far." "What is this place?" "This is a memorial. A reminder of what humanity can do when we're desperate, when we're afraid." Sang-Min walked to a window overlooking the massive sphere. "We built this weapon 4,000 years ago. We've never used it since the war ended. But we maintain it. We keep it functional. Do you know why?" Taman shook his head. "Because the galaxy needs to know that we could, because forgetting is dangerous. If we forget what we're capable of, we might use these weapons again. If the galaxy forgets, they might challenge us and force us to defend ourselves." Sang-Min turned to face him. "We stay isolated not because we're afraid of the galaxy. We're isolated because the galaxy should be afraid of us. But you've had peace for thousands of years. Yes, because we chose it. Because we decided that the greatest expression of our power was to not use it." Sang-Min smiled sadly. "The Concordat thinks they're free to govern themselves. But they're not." "Not really. We watch from the shadows. When threats appear, we eliminate them quietly. 3 times in recorded history, extinction-level dangers approached known space. 3 times human ships appeared and destroyed those threats. Then we vanished again." Taman sat down, his legs weak. "You're the galaxy's guardians. We're the galaxy's greatest threat and its last defense. Both at once." Sang-Min placed a hand on Taman's shoulder. You asked why the maps end at our borders. Now you know. It's not a secret. It's a warning. Here be dragons, and we dragons choose to sleep so the rest of the galaxy can live in peace. Outside the window, the stellar converter hummed with dormant power, a weapon that could end worlds, held in check only by humanity's choice not to use it. The journey back to Concordate space felt longer than the journey out. Taemin traveled in silence, his mind replaying everything he had seen, the empty worlds, the impossible weapons, the hologram of Junho explaining humanity's choice. The weight of that knowledge pressed down on him like a physical thing. Da-Yun monitored the ship's systems and tried to engage him in conversation, but he rarely responded. What could he say? How could he explain to an artificial intelligence that everything they believed about the galaxy was built on a comfortable lie? Bora's patrol ship escorted him back to the border. Before they separated, she sent him one final message. You handled it better than most. Some people break when they see the truth. They can't accept that their freedom is borrowed, that their lives exist at humanity's pleasure. But you stayed calm. You asked good questions. Sangmin was impressed. What am I supposed to do now? Taemin asked. Live your life. Do your work. Carry the knowledge. That's all anyone can do. Bora paused. For what it's worth, I hope you find peace with what you've learned. Most of us humans struggle with it too. Then she was gone, her ship vanishing into the depths of human space. Taemin crossed back into Concordate territory 3 weeks after he had left. He filed his return paperwork and submitted a bland report about his research trip. He claimed he had visited remote stations to study trade patterns. No one questioned him. When he returned to work at the Central Archives, Ha-Un was waiting at his desk. You look different, she said. I feel different. You went, didn't you? You followed the coordinates. Taemin nodded slowly. Ha-Un sat down and studied his face for a long moment. Director Krelthax wants to see you. He's been waiting for your return. The director's office was at the top of the archive building. Taemin had only been there once before when he was first hired. The room was large and filled with old star charts and historical documents. Director Krelthax sat behind his desk, his 6 arms folded in a gesture that could mean many things. Sit, the director said. Taemin sat. You violated regulations by entering human space without authorization. You accessed restricted coordinates. You placed yourself and potentially the Concordate at risk. Krelthax's voice was stern. Then it softened. And you did exactly what I did when I was your age. Taemin's skin darkened with surprise. 40 years ago, I found coordinates, Krelthax continued. Someone had left them in the archives, hidden in old files. I was curious. I was foolish. I went to human space and saw the stellar converter. I met Sangmin, though he was younger then. He showed me the same things he showed you. Why didn't you stop me? Because the knowledge must be passed on. Every generation needs people who know the truth. Not many. Just enough. Krelthax stood and walked to the window overlooking the city. The Concordate functions because most species don't think about humanity. They know humans exist. They know there's a restricted zone. But they don't dwell on it. They live their lives, build their civilizations, raise their children. That's how it should be. But it's a lie. It's a necessary illusion. The truth would paralyze the galaxy with fear. Imagine if everyone knew that 17 weapons capable of ending all life were sitting in human space. Imagine if everyone understood that their freedom exists only because humanity chooses not to conquer them. There would be panic. There would be attempts to build weapons to counter the human threat. And those attempts would fail, leading to more fear and desperation. Krelthax turned to face him. The High Council knows. The senior archivists know. The military commanders of every major species know. We form a quiet network of people who understand the truth and work to maintain the peace that humanity's isolation provides. Now you're part of that network. What does that mean? It means you continue your work. You update your maps. You live your life. But you also watch. You listen. And if you hear whispers of anyone planning to challenge humanity or trying to breach their borders, you report it. Because the greatest service we can provide the galaxy is ensuring that humanity never has to wake up. Taemin spent the next few months adjusting to his new reality. He returned to his regular duties, updating star charts and managing the archive's cartographic databases. But everything felt different now. When he looked at the galactic maps, the gray void marking human space wasn't just an empty region. It was a reminder of the sleeping dragon that could end everything. One day, 6 months after his return, the High Council summoned him. He traveled to the Concordate capital and was brought before the council chambers. 12 species were represented, the leaders of the most powerful civilizations in known space. The council chair, an ancient being from one of the oldest species, spoke first. Tae-min, we understand you visited human space and learned their secrets. Yes, honored chair. And what did you learn? Tae-min chose his words carefully. I learned that humanity is far more powerful than we acknowledge publicly. I learned that they possess weapons that could threaten the entire galaxy. And I learned that they choose not to use those weapons, instead isolating themselves to protect us from their own capabilities. The council members looked at each other. Finally, the chair spoke again. 3 times in recorded history, existential threats have approached our space. 3 times those threats disappeared without explanation. Did you learn anything about that? I learned that humanity watches over the galaxy. They eliminate threats that we couldn't handle ourselves. They do it quietly, without asking for recognition or reward. And what do you think we should do with this information? It was a test. Tae-min knew it. The wrong answer would mark him as a security risk. The right answer would confirm his place in the network of those who knew. I think we should do what we've been doing. Maintain the borders, respect human isolation, and be grateful that the most powerful species in the galaxy chooses peace over conquest. The chair smiled, or made the closest approximation their species could manage. Well said. You may return to your duties. As Tae-min left the council chambers, he felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. He was now a keeper of humanity's secret, one of the few who knew the truth and worked to preserve the comfortable illusion that allowed the galaxy to prosper. Years passed. Tae-min rose through the ranks of the archive. He became a senior cartographer, then an assistant director. He trained new archivists and watched for the signs of curiosity about human space. When he found someone asking the right questions, he would guide them gently away from dangerous knowledge. But he also watched the old databases, waiting for the inevitable. Because he knew the coordinates were still there, hidden in the archives. Someone would find them eventually. Someone always did. It happened on a quiet afternoon 20 years after his own journey. A young cartographer named Soo-jin came to his office with questions about the gray void on the maps. Director Tae-min, I've been studying the border regions. There's something strange about human space. The maps haven't changed in thousands of years. Why is that? Tae-min looked at the young woman and saw himself decades ago, curious, intelligent, unwilling to accept easy answers. That's a complicated question, he said, carefully. I've been researching the archives. There are references to something called stellar converters, and there are coordinates hidden in old files, coordinates that lead into human space. There it was. The moment that happened every few decades. The moment when someone stumbled onto the truth that humanity had deliberately left for them to find. Tae-min could warn her away. He could classify the files and end her curiosity. But he remembered Director Krelthax letting him follow the coordinates. He remembered Sang-min saying that the knowledge must be passed on. If you found coordinates, you should consider following them, Tae-min said slowly. But understand that what you find will change you. The truth about humanity isn't easy to carry. Soo-jin's eyes widened. You've been there, yes, many years ago, and I've carried that knowledge ever since. Tae-min pulled up a star chart on his display. If you go, be respectful. Follow all protocols, and remember that humanity allows these visits because they want us to understand. They want the galaxy to remember what they're capable of and why they choose isolation. Will you tell me what I'll find? No, you need to see it yourself. Words can't capture it. Tae-min looked at the gray void on his map. But I'll tell you this. Humanity is both the greatest threat and the greatest protector our galaxy has ever known. They're the dragons who choose to sleep, so the rest of us can live in peace. Soo-jin left his office with more questions than answers. Tae-min watched her go and smiled sadly. In a few months, she would make the journey. She would see the stellar converters. She would meet whoever had replaced Sang-min as the keeper of the memorial. And she would return changed, carrying the weight of humanity's secret. That evening, Tae-min updated the galactic maps as he had done thousands of times before. When he reached the human territory, he paused. The gray void sat there, unchanged and unchanging. But instead of the standard label, restricted territory, he made a small change. A notation that would appear on all official maps going forward. Guardian space with gratitude. It was a small gesture. Most people wouldn't understand it. But those who knew the truth would see it and smile, because it acknowledged what humanity really